What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to CanesCast. And man, oh man, do we have an exciting show. We're pumped. The whole fan base is pumped. Everybody's excited because we're coming back after, honestly, one of the best wins we've seen as Canes fans in a while for a number of reasons that we're going to break down. But before we get into that, I'm one half of the CanesCast host here, Phil, here with Garrett, and we're ready to get rolling with you guys. We're excited. Garrett, I'm going to let you kick things off. I guess wrap this excitement up for me real quick. I mean, what are you so jazzed about right now? What are you most jazzed about, I should say?
As you've said, that's one of the best wins that this program's had since I would say I was in the Orange Bowl for the Notre Dame game in 2017. But
Well, not
having
the Orange Bowl, but Hard Rock.
the Hard Rock, having our home stadium, be as rocking as it was, have that be a big game. This rivalry, if you call it's still a rivalry, right? It's not an annual rivalry. And it's kind of a shame that we don't exchange the Seminole War Canoe, because that just adds something more fun to a weekend like this. You have 4 or 5 long months of an off season when your team last plays, before everything's settled with a roster and all that. And then you have all this unknown: is how's the team going to look? What's this guy from last year, this year? Is he going to progress? So what coaches are going to come in and out? What kind of effect will that have? This is what that's all about. Having your first game be a big game in an opponent's stadium at that, and then coming out with a dominant victory. This is what it's all about. I mean, you look forward to this type of a win for, in our case, years. So it's really good soaking it all in, finally having a reason to look forward to talking about this show is probably what it's, the most fun part about it.
Honestly, I mean, you hit it on the head with that. We've been waiting for this for a while. We've been excited. This was just a great way to kick the season off. I mean, I think that everybody pointed to, us included, it would have been nice to have maybe some tune-up games before this. Obviously, we didn't need it. We went in there, we could have scored 50, we could have scored 60 points. That's how dominant of a game this was. I don't want to say we took our foot off the gas, but we played around a little bit, like with Restrepo's pass should have been a touchdown, things like that we'll touch on more in just a minute. But this was an all-around dominant performance. And now hindsight's obviously 2020, but when you pull back and say that's how you start the season, that's great. Now you feel even better because we know what would have happened before. Miami's ranked 19th. Oh, they beat you, or FAB. You beat whoever. You beat these small FCS schools, and you go beat Ball State. FAMU is who we're playing. That's why I couldn't. The initials weren't coming together in my head for a second. But yeah, FAMU, Ball State. You go play these little schools, and what are we? Oh, we haven't shown anything. Look who we've beaten. So now we start out with a pretty big thing, a pretty big dominant win. A big statement is what I was trying to say there. And on the road, and now it's funny, the backtracking teams I see other fan bases doing. Well, Florida's not any good. Florida's not going to be any good. It's like, okay, all we heard before is the Swamp's going to make the biggest difference. The Swamp's going to be the thing. You can't play there. Cam Ward's never played in a place like that. It's too loud. It's too much. It's going to be 90-something thousand fans, toughest place to play in the country, going crazy. And we did exactly what we needed to do. And what I mentioned, you talked about a little bit, was punch them in the mouth first. We took them out of the game, took the crowd out of that game. The second the crowd got back into the game with that touchdown run or the interception, we took it right back. What did we do? We responded immediately. We held them to 3, and then we scored right after they scored, and then we scored right after halftime. We grabbed the game by the throat and didn't let go. And that's what I was excited about. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see that just Miami football of no mercy, because we know that if the roles were reversed, they would have not taken their foot off the gas against us. Florida State would not have taken their foot off the gas against us. So it's important that we did the same to send a message really in that regard. I hate blowing people out like that. You talk about the classlessness of it, or people want a sportsmanship of it. People love doing it to us. So I'm okay with giving it back, especially to a rival that talks a lot of crap. And I'm excited. Before you jump off, though, just want to rally off a couple of quick stats here for you, Garrett, for people listening. Largest home loss the Gators have had in 10 years at the hands of a rival that they took off the schedule because, we know why. It's tough to play Miami all the time, right? It's hard because now they had an SEC schedule, and then Miami was beating them. Wow, we don't want to play Miami every year, so let's get rid of them. Well, I guess it makes sense now. I'm a little salty, little still hyped about the game. Largest home loss in 10 years. We doubled them up in yards, ended a 34-year home opener win streak for the Gators. That's a win streak that's been going longer than I've been alive for home openers for the Gators. That's pretty crazy. 10 passes of 20 plus yards. We scored on 6 of our 8 drives. Didn't allow a 20-yard pass all game. Wow. I mean, talk about dominance and wrap it up into a nice little bow of doubling up the yards. Take away the run play, the 71-yard run play. And it's even worse. And that was a Hurricanes mistake. What was it? Powell took a bad angle. It happens. It was a mistake, but that being one of 2 or 3 mistakes, the other being an interception, a missed field goal. It was really a pretty perfect game. I'm excited for it. And we just, what a way to start the season, man. What a way to start the season. I'm just excited as all get out. And I'm just ready to keep it rolling.
Well, as you went through the stats, that was the thing that stood out to me is there really wasn't any one thing that you could say negative about the game. There are some coaching points that you'll take from, the interception to the missed field goal to still continue out, the weekly work, getting prepared for a team every week, because not flawless, but about as good as you could ask for, because you outgained them, own the time of possession. The penalties weren't a problem. I think we had 2 penalties, which is that's so encouraging to see.
No false starts either. And all we heard about was the crowd, not a single false start, which you would have assumed with that crowd. I just want to say that.
And that's, all the pieces being, brought from all over the country. Are they going to mesh well? Are they going to play well in a hostile environment right off the bat? Are they going to be ready? I mean, you can't ask for more than that. A dominant victory. What we've talked about, in that day during the game was, it's been so, and I haven't said this originally, so that's not original thought, but Miami has made passing the ball look extremely difficult for so long. Go back to maybe it's the Ken Dorsey days where the offense was more pro style, so it was super important to be on the right time, have everything line up well to make it look good and be efficient. And literally, it's dropped off a cliff since then. We haven't had a quarterback drafted since Ken Dorsey. We had Greg Kaya, drafted, but somebody with that kind of a college career to speak of, with some championships and things, accolades to go along with it, right? Where from 1980 to right at the beginning of part of the 90s, we had a quarterback every year. Originally, it was quarterback U for a long time, right? So having that athlete was huge. The rushing yards, I think we had 144 total rushing yards. The 33 of the biggest ones were all Cam Ward's. Having something sealed up on the down the field and having it out, going around the field to the right that one time, going straight up the field in that same first drive to extend that drive, those are killer. Instead of taking a sack and having a negative play and getting behind, that's what I've been screaming is I don't care if the guy has to run, 15 times a game for 100 yards, but boy, just take those easy yardage chunks when they're right in front of you. That's what I've been waiting for. So it was so great to see almost everything you could want play out. The defensive secondary played well. The line played well. Quarterback played well. I don't know what else more we could want. And then, we have a week to really tune our second, third teamers up for this, long season. It's a long season now. They're adding a championship game, ideally, if you're playing well, and then you've got these playoff games. So, I mean, you could have a grind of a season. Let's get some guys at second, third team need to be counted on down the road. Because as we talked about, we had even a star player go down. Ruben May plays one series, and defense doesn't miss a beat. We don't even have that to excuse or worry about. It's just so nice that even that wasn't. Even though you want Ruben May on the field, he's a dominant player for a reason. You want him to be okay, but that's not debilitating to the defense. We were still able to get pressures, tackles for loss. It all still looked good. That was. I don't know what else more you could ask for.
I mean, I agree. I agree. There were some things you mentioned Bain, obviously, and then Damari Brown. I think he played in the teens. Ultimately, is the amount of snaps he ended up playing, 14 or so. It was a not as many as you think. I
But he
might have that
made a
number
couple
off.
really good sticky coverage
He did.
plays to show that. I mean, he's sophomore. He's got a long career still ahead of him, but he's making strides. Yes, I agree. It's
No, I'm
huge to
saying,
have him healthy, of course, but
yeah, him and
you even got to see that in the short period of time he was on the field.
Rodriguez too. I think were the three. Bain, Rodriguez, and Brown were the three. Again, I don't remember the exact snap total. The nice part about that though is how we started. Obviously, we talk about the depth. You mentioned that's what you're hitting on right now is that depth and how you don't miss a guy like that. How Barron and Alston, all these guys just crushed it. Barrow, our defensive line was just epic. It was relentless, and we just got after it, And they have a good offensive line. I mean, they have talent on the offensive line. They have talent on the defensive line, and our lines just paved the way. And that's something that you and I both have talked about for a long time. We've been begging for that. We always have skilled players, but you got to protect. I mean, 2 years ago, our line was getting pushed 5 yards back pretty consistently. Now we're dominating the line of scrimmage in SEC environment. Everybody preaches about SEC lines, a hostile environment, and SEC talent, and we're moving them off the ball consistently. The nice part about those injuries, though, is that they are soft tissue injuries, couple weeks, right? They said, if the games were super important, they'd be playing. But what's nice is the way we started, right? We got that out of the way. Now we play FAMU, then we play Ball State. There's no reason for any of these guys to play. They wouldn't be playing the whole game anyway. Let them get healed up. It's a perfect opportunity for something like this to happen. You don't want to see it happen, but if it happens, it's good that it's happening now. Something I would say, the only way this game could have been more perfect, you were talking about Cam Ward's running, that, for example, that interception, that was the one play that you say, man, he shouldn't have thrown that. You heard the announcer say on the sideline, he immediately was like, give me the iPad. He wanted to know what he did wrong. He wanted to know what he was seeing, all this stuff. And I mean, hell of a response. He came right back down, scored, boom. It was that interception was in the past. We're not doing that again. He could have taken off there. He could have taken off and maybe not scored, but got pretty close to it on the Jacoby George touchdown pass that everybody's raving about. That was so big time. I mean, that it was a big time touchdown pass. It was a touchdown. It was an NFL touchdown pass. It was an NFL touchdown catch. I mean, with George getting both feet down like that. So,
but they really made that same play for the touchdown, right? He was rolling around, throws across his body with
exactly.
A unique arm angle, and it hits him as a dot right on the back of the end zone for 2 feet down. So that's so crazy. It's like you like to say, don't do that, don't throw that ball, kid. But the mechanics maybe were poor of it, but really you got a chance to see the team respond defensively and him self-correcting and then making that slight adjustment, hitting that same route essentially. I mean, not exactly the same, but the same idea. Him really throwing the same type of a ball,
they
and
can
it
get away with
goes
it.
to a touchdown. So you're like, you're happy with. I'm glad he threw that interception and either sparked something or sparked the defense to show him that they had his back. Both of them are.
What a game. He was our highest graded offensive player. He was, and neither of us touched on Cam Ward as far as our breakout player or who we expected or our impact player of the game, just because it was too easy. He was obviously the guy. But 385 yards, most in a Miami Hurricanes quarterback debut. I mean, everything you could have asked for. The one thing I would have liked to see more is maybe a little more commitment to the run. We had, good rushing yard totals, but I would have liked to see potentially a little bit more. And maybe that's first game. They did a lot in the past game. They mixed it up a lot. I appreciated that, but I think, Florida's got a good defensive line, but maybe just a little more commitment to just that smash mouth style. But what they did worked. And I think that's also chalked that up to the first game of the season. I was a little surprised that Fletcher, it shows how much, trust they have in Fletcher and how talented Fletcher is. He was a big recruit. And the fact that he came in and both those touchdowns were Fletcher's. We assumed it would be Martinez. He got some hard yards. I think we all need to sit back and talk about for just a second. His truck that he had was ridiculous. I think who did he DJ Jackson?
Yeah.
I might be missing his name.
Yeah, there's safety. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just laid him down. He ended up making the tackle, but man, what a hit. And then talk about making your presence felt. But yeah, that's really the only thing I could say. I mean, they played a perfect game. I do want to give myself a little bit of props with the Xavier Restrepo pick, just because Restrepo had a heck
Honestly,
of a
man,
game.
that guy is a jam. What a catch. to get them started. You know, what a move on that long play right after half. That
Oh,
was
who,
beautiful.
by the
Beautiful
way,
route running. Oh my
Garrett,
gosh.
Garrett and I have a friend, more Garrett's friend than my friend, but who's a Gators fan, who I distinctly remember saying Florida got the better Washington safety in the transfer, Asa Turner, who I don't want to dump on the poor guy, but broke his leg on the Restrepo spin. I mean, what? And then Powell had, I mean, it was just
A pick
impact
and
after impact.
Dinger took it back.
Should have been,
Um,
yeah, should have been a pick six. Oh, also, Powell, real quick. 88.5 PFF grade. Pal, 88.5 PFF grade. I have some more stats for you here. He was, let me pull this up because the guy was unbelievable. He had 31 coverage snaps. This is per pro football focus, excuse me. I'm a big fan of Pro Football Focus. You know, there's ways to take it, obviously. For those who aren't, you can live it, you know, take it or leave it, but it exists for a reason. Teams use it, college, pro, Canadian Football League, all use it. 31 coverage snaps, 0 yards allowed, 1 interception, 89 coverage grade. So
well,
talk
and
about
not
a
only
good
that,
game.
if you say Jaden Harris catches that interception, he has two potentially in the
Yep.
first game, pairing next to Mish Powell.
Yep.
That was one of the things we talked about is there actually a better couple safeties you're getting out of this year's team versus last year's team that had high strength, low, a hard weakness in some of their abilities. Don't get me wrong, I love both players, but you know, you took a degrading coverage ability in James Williams's case a little bit. So having two pure safeties there, boy, they both looked like they were ready to rock. I'd say even Markeith Williams came in and made a great play on a sideline route and was right there. Looked all over that. I like that too. I remember that sticking out. You know, gosh, Jadatus Richard looked like he's taken the necessary and he's progressed what you would like to see for now an upperclassman. Big body cornerback. Daryl Porter, you never heard anything about Daryl Porter getting beat. You know, really, that you can't ask for a lot more. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but boy, oh boy, it was just everybody looked ready to go. Finally, Miami Hurricanes look ready to play some football. How about it?
I think part of that too with the safeties, the safety play, I will say leans in a little bit to just the team play. I think we've seen in a lot of spots in recent memory, not the 2017 season. I will take that out till the end, but even then, there was a lot of responses, I would say, in that Wisconsin Orange Bowl game. But a lot of games, how many times in our past would we have seen that interception be one play touchdown, Gators tie the game up? I mean, that just would have been what we've seen. We've seen that time and time again. And the leadership at quarterback, the leadership from the coaching staff, the leadership from, you know, the offensive line, the defensive line, these guys that are taking that role, I just think it spearheads the game. It sets you off on the right foot. We punched them out early. We kept our foot on the gas, and it's contagious. Its momentum is contagious. You and I were on different pages with Jaden Harris's dropped pick. I was excited, not that he dropped the pick, but for the field position flip. It is momentum thing. Thankfully, we didn't need that momentum. But I think that safety play, when you have a defensive line that's arguably the best in the country, and that's not me saying that. I'm watching these Pro Football Focus takes. These guys, how they grade them out. Miami has what going into is the third highest graded pro defensive line in the country. I mean, these guys are good in any conference, and these guys, I just listened to their recap of the game. They're saying the same thing, that these guys are arguably they might even be the best. And when you have that kind of defensive line that can just eat up an offensive line, it makes the secondary's job better. We know that, right? If you have a secondary that's so locked down, it makes your front seven better. So it goes hand in hand. But I think that free flowing and not thinking so much comes because we know how good of a player Cam Kinchins is. He's a great player. I think Kinchins would have all the success in the world in this system too, playing with a guy like Powell, you know, or anything like that if he was still here. We agree Williams was probably playing out of position. Super talented guy, but probably should have been a different position. Super athletic, so he made it work. But we'll digress. We're not going to go down that route. But all in all, you couldn't have asked for a better game. It just is. It's nice, salt on the wound, cherry on top. That Florida can't figure out how to where to put their recruits. So you had their recruits in our path, throwing the U up, cheering for us. Gator commits. Are they going to flip? Pickett was there, big recruit, committed to LSU, but we know it's not locked down. Heard good things about there could be some stuff, in the wind with that. So, what a game to be at, and what a terrible game for the Gators to have all those recruits at. And it just, everything went in Miami's favor. Like, I mean, you couldn't have had a better, and the fact that none of these guys were seriously hurt is just a gem in itself. And when you look at it, we're getting that national praise. I've listened to all these guys talk. There is not a game that we're probably not going to be favored in. Now, depending on what Louisville does the rest of the season, and when we go to them, that might, be close if Louisville rallies off a bunch of wins and they look great. But I would imagine at home we'll be favored over Florida State. I just don't, and that'll be interesting.
Yeah, we're recording this on Monday afternoon
before Florida State.
Who knows to see how Florida State looks tonight? And that's what's super important is we've got to keep the foot on the gas. This is not time to buy into your own press clippings, get a big head about your success. What I took from the clip you sent me from Mario Cristobal in the locker room, showing his emotions, which you love to see. Finally, this guy is very, very good about keeping it all in check on the screen in front of the cameras. But man, you like to see that intensity and hear it out of the coach. Finally, he almost felt like that's the guy you were hoping he was. Finally getting to see it 3 years in after a big win was huge. But don't screw this up. This has got to be a team that's going to be staying hungry, whether they're now favored in all these games or whether they're, somehow going to be an underdog here for the rest of the season, because this is where they slip up a Duke game or a Virginia Tech game who didn't look great their first week of the season. This is the time to go run through the ACC schedule that you have then. If you're the team that we think you're showing so far, don't let up. Don't buy into it, the hype train. Continue that grind like you actually have something to prove each and every week. So we actually are not left disappointed.
I will say on that coin, you're right. It's don't look past any opponent. Keep it moving. Keep going. Keep the momentum going. On that though, teams are going to have games that they're a little flat, right? You have to imagine that most teams don't have a game where you run through. It's not all, the 0-1 Canes or what LSU did in 2019. And these teams of destiny, those things happen. Who knows? Maybe we are. I'd love to say that we are. Hopefully we are. I will say that in past years, I've looked at it and said, okay, I'm excited, but there's always that seed of doubt in the back of your head. There's always the seed of doubt of well, yeah, but if this, there's not a spot on this team, Sans Ward getting hurt, knock on wood, that I hope he doesn't, that you really feel like, and your quarterback is your quarterback. You're not saying, oh, I'm going to need my backup quarterback. You got to have a backup quarterback capable of winning. I think we have trust in Emory, but we saw it with the defensive line. We see it with the offensive line. This team is built and this team is deep and this team is just getting deeper. I want to say real quick that just think about the recruiting classes that Cristobal's been able to pull in with a 5-win season, with a 7-win season. Now imagine if we go win 10, 11 games. Imagine if we go on a playoff run. Imagine if we won the whole thing. How good that recruiting is going to be, that it's palpable. And you pull that back, that energy is just, it's contagious. And I'm excited for what's to come. That being said, again, slip-ups happen, accidents happen, mistakes happen. You get caught, you play flat. Teams, you're not playing your best football. How do you respond to that? Does this team drop a game? If they do you drop a game, and how do you immediately respond? Because we're not worried in the next couple of weeks, right? But once we get in the next couple weeks down the road, how do you respond if you do drop a game? Does that eat you and we drop multiple like in past? Or do we just leave that in the past and then continue on a run? Because we'll be fine if we do that. That's going to be the big thing for me. And can we rally and play a tight game with a team who, has no business playing a tight game with us, but we make sure that we come out on top? That's going to be a test that we haven't seen. I'm excited to see how the team responds to something like that. If it happens, perfect world, it won't. We'll just rally off every win by 20 plus and we'll be happy. But this is a team that has the look of, as long as that guy's behind center with that offensive line, the fact that he could write a book half the time behind that line, it was so clean. That pocket was so clean. Only sack that we took was one that we shouldn't have taken, which, by the way, that's my one complaint is I think maybe those guys should have been out of the game a little sooner. I get why we didn't do it. But again, that would have been my one thing. But this team has the looks of everything that we've been waiting for a long time. And not just, hey, we caught lightning in a bottle in 2017, which was a great season. But we know that team was a few injuries away from having everything fall apart. And that's what happened. We got hurt and everything started falling apart. This team has some depth behind it. And that's exciting. That's exciting. So before we go, let's touch on FAMU a little bit. There's not a lot to touch on. Everything's Gators. And for us, we talked about doing a show just on FAMU. I don't think we need it because let's be real. They're a good team in their own right, but this should be a game in which a lot of guys see a lot of playing time, right? So what are some things that you're looking forward to in a game like this, Garrett?
Well, one, personally, and I have vested interest in this, so full disclosure, I'm looking for Cam Ward to continue putting up enough stats in the half a game of work, maybe, that he continues the potential for a Heisman candidacy. 400 yards almost, 3 touchdowns, 1 turnover, a couple, scrambles to net positive there. And in this case, he was about 33 yards. Those are Heisman numbers. If this team keeps winning, that's what I would love to see. I want to see him win the Heisman. I want to see Miami be successful and be a serious contender at the end of the year. So that's what I want to see. Can he get on the field long enough? Can they have some big plays and then get the 2s and 3s in for the rest of the game?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see Cam Moore come out, throw a couple touchdowns, and just dominate. And all of a sudden, put 30 points on the board and then come out and, he throws those. You're right. These games are what we just saw Jackson Dart have, right? In that big win. What do you throw, like 6 touchdowns? I think so. You're playing a team that's way overmatched. And that's when you look back at the stats as a whole and say, wow, he threw X amount. And then obviously when you break it down, so many of them come in these little games, but you're right. They're stat padding games. Biggest thing for me is, yes, I want to see that. I want to stay healthy. I want to see, Restrepo get some stats. I want to see Martinez get some stats, scores first touchdown at home. Defense score a touchdown. I want to see that energy keep going. But I want to see guys like Emery come in and get a lot of playing time. Poffinger come in, get a good amount of playing time, and just, feel good about throwing to these weapons. However many starters that is, that's fine. But these kinds of games also make good teams better because it gets these guys reps, which makes them more game ready. I know it's not the same talent level, but ready to step in if they need to. It's maybe not as nerve wracking. They don't feel as ill prepared. They're getting live, there's live rounds being thrown at them. So
this could be a Jordan Lyle game,
who
came in, man. He made some plays, ready to pass protect. Didn't get a lot of protection. Yeah. Didn't get a lot of burn, but this is a game where Jordan Lyle should, once he gets in, he should have all the chances to put down some good film, get some good stats, so he can look back over the season and the whole field feel good about it. Should kind of start here this week.
I don't want to see, our starting offensive line, maybe outside of a player or two, our starting defensive line. Obviously, our quarterback, Restrepo, Martinez, any of these guys in past halftime, unless the game for some reason dictates it, or there's just something that it's like, our last drive was a punt. We want to end with our last drive being a touchdown, good juju type thing. Unless it's something like that, that should be one of these games where we don't see him past halftime. And let's keep moving. I'm interested.
You got Samson Pancake Honcho and a guy who's 6'9", 350 pounds as your backup tackle. So
exactly, yeah.
I'm a little discouraged if I'm FAMU because even the guys behind the starters are huge
Which is
guys.
what we've been waiting to say forever. So thank you, football gods. And thank you, Mario Cristobal. And we're in a position where this is building.
Thank you, Mario Cristobal. That was a great win.
Yes, we are excited. On that, though, real quick, we're going to close out. I just want your prediction. And obviously, we're going to be held to this because we're hopefully going to get this on the air tonight. And then, obviously, we don't know what's happening with Florida State yet tonight as we're doing this. But where do you think we'll be ranked? Because I've seen a lot of people saying top 10. Teams like Oregon not playing well against Idaho. I think we cracked the top 10.
I could see us staying right outside the top 10, which I'm fine with. Mm-hmm. Again, rankings being so little at the beginning of the season, it's fodder. but it's important to be on the list at some point. So as long as you're on the list, moving your way up as teams are inevitably going to fall this year, don't falter. Don't be one of those teams. Play the games that are on your schedule each and every week. Win them all, 1-0 every week, right? So I do believe that we are right around top 10. I agree. I think we'll be right there.
I think that if we got FAMU, Ball State, South Florida, we win these next couple games, it's not going to move the needle a lot. You're right. It's based on what other teams do. I think we should be right in that top 10 range right now. Well, if we keep winning, we might crack another spot or two because of the nature of other teams falling. But then there's that Virginia Tech game. You win that Virginia Tech game as other things work themselves out.
Well, because like you got like LSU and whoever they just played, and USC. They're gonna flip. Yeah, USC played, beat them. So I mean, they were 23. They're gonna flip up. You know, teams that knock
Florida
off
State will fall.
Are ranked. You know, teams that will knock off ranked teams are gonna jump too. So, you know, again, I think the rankings are they're other than for you and me to talk about this kind of stuff. It's not important until at the end of the season. But again, it's gonna take care of itself naturally by the end of the season. And in this case, you're not worried about getting in those top 4 spots with some subjective baloney intertwined with it, right? Just beat your teams, win the conference, get in. You don't play worse than top 10 team, and you're not getting left out anymore. So
it's true. But as fans, as people breaking this down, CanesCast hosts, it's our job, and it's something that we like to do, that we can look ahead and do that. We don't want the team to do that, but I predict that if we continue to win, I think we'll stay in that top 10 range. And I think beating Virginia Tech as other teams move around, if we keep doing it, that's going to be our top 6, 7, 5 time to crack that and stay. And for me, more than anything, I love to look back and say, man, Miami was in the top 10 for most of the season, and we've earned that. And we get back to number 1, which it's been a while since we've seen. That's the goal. A goal for this season is, can we get to number 1? Now, someone's going to have to beat Georgia for that to happen.
Have we not been ranked number 1 since the end of 2002? Has it been that long?
The highest we got to number 2 in 2017. We never got to number 1. So I think it's
2003. We had a good team. You know, we could have been ranked high. We might have been 1 at some point during that season, but
yeah, that's
crazy. Holy cow.
Yeah. So for me, it'd be nice to get there. Now, granted, if Georgia doesn't lose, no one's taking number 1. If Georgia looks bad, and we keep dominating teams, maybe. But if Georgia doesn't lose, they're not falling out of 1. But
also, like we talked about, you know, now you want Florida to win. You know, to be honest with you, the more Florida can pull out victories in this schedule that they have ahead of them, it looks better for us. So really, that helps a lot. You know, maybe Florida can take down Georgia. You know, that team that we watched, I don't see how it's possible.
No way.
But you know, maybe Lagway's in and finally is starting to find his groove. So, you know, a lot can change over the course of a season. It's not as bad as it seems for Florida. We're not as good as it seems for Miami yet either, right?
It's true.
I'm not saying we can't be that team, but we're not that team yet. Keep building to be that team. But again, we're not as great as we feel like we are right now. Florida's not as bad as they feel like they are right now either. So
you're right. Keep it moving. If Florida could pull a win like that, that would be great. But I think a rivalry game like that, probably not going to happen. If, you know, you catch some random team that has no business, and then they, like Idaho scaring Oregon, that kind of thing. But when you're up for the game, a little different. I don't see that there's any way that they beat them. But hey, crazier things have happened. And when I say crazier things, I guess you really kind of just point to App State, Michigan or something like that. Yeah, it wouldn't be that crazy because it's still SEC football. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. The way they look, not going to happen. But you got to play. The games aren't played on paper, right? As always, guys, it's all about the you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us go off about our Canes. Go Canes.